So, how many people have been following my crazy ideas and thoughts and felt some sort of hey, there's something to that aspect? I may not agree with all of it. I mean, the dude sounds nuts. But there's something to this one little part over here that I can't quite get out of my mind. Look into it. That's the crazy thing about messages that don't truly come from words. If somebody's essentially transmitting a celestial message, they could know it like the back of their hand and still not quite know the message, because the message winds up, well, refracting. It takes on a life of its own. It is it it actually guides itself to where it needs to be. All it really takes is for somebody going, look at this dumbass on there. It could be a complete roast video, vlog, whatever. And somebody picks up and looks at what the person's saying in the video, and then they get their understanding of it. I'd never be able to tell anybody what, somebody's understanding of what I'm saying is going to be. A lot of it is going to sound like complete gibberish. I mean, half the time it does to me. But I'm not lying about this shit either. Now, it's... truth is stranger than fiction. For reals, for reals. I mean, you have no idea, for reals, for reals. Some of you might be starting to get an idea, but as long as my crazy talk still sounds crazy, you have no clue. Once my crazy talk actually starts making sense, then you'll start seeing why I've been so frustrated my whole life. I can never convince somebody that the message is real. They've got to convince themselves. It's their responsibility to put in the effort. It still amazes me, the simple fact that people don't recognize that words hold different meanings in our own world. It could be exactly the same word, the same language, but because it's used on the far side of the continent instead of the near side of the continent, it has a completely different twist to it. Think about that. There is no real definition. Definitions don't actually exist. They're a fiction. And we've been taught that we need to look up the definition. The best that you can actually get is a description. There is no definition. You can't define any word, much less the object that the word might be describing to begin with. This is crucially important if you're going to break yourself out of your own prison, so to speak. Most people, this is a hell. Make no mistake about that. This is a hell. It's meant for you to learn a lesson. It's trapped you here for a purpose. You need to learn. That way you can use what you do have safely. The truth is more of a mind fuck than what we've come to accept is reality any day of the week. Any day of the week. I've been saying a lot of these same things in words, trying to use other people's words because nobody understood me, then going back to using my words because everybody was essentially calling me a sham and pretender because I was using everybody else's work. The whole point of this isn't my work. This is my message. I'm supposed to try to help people do. Not me do. I get to do once everybody else does. I already know this works. I'm not allowed until you do. If you want me to do, that's your choice. Now I have permission. I can do. That's all I've been saying for years, and yet everybody wants to twist those words up and say that I'm saying something else. Who knows? I can't do until somebody decides that they're going to do the things I can't, period. There are things in everything that I've got posted by now that you can look at, you can take something from, and you can do something beneficial for your entire neighborhood with. It will benefit you and your entire neighborhood. Just from existing, just from being. And you would be the seed, you would be the spark. But somebody needs to do it. You wouldn't believe the kind of stoppers that have been put in place for me to not do this before time. I'm not meant to do this before a specific time. There is an individual who is coming up with the thing that will be what the future holds to be the origin point. I'm just the messenger. But if I came before the time to actually use the message, what is that saying? Now I'm a time traveler too, sort of. Everybody is to some degree or other. This particular life just happens to be at the right moment in time. Although this particular life has been lived by me at least 5 or 6 times in the past. Sounds crazy, right? I guarantee all the times that I've attempted to commit suicide in the past, at one time in the past, succeeded. We have a lot more effect on our life around us if we would just open our eyes to how we affect reality. If we want to focus on the problems, we're going to inevitably, whether we intend the opposite or not, create more of those problems, the very problems we're focusing on. We see that all over the place. The police. We see that in medicine. We see that in politics. The people who were supposed to be our leaders and our heroes. What the hell is this shit? How did we have leaders that are known lies, cheats, and even terrorists? You can't tell me Trump's not a terrorist. Quite frankly, you can't tell me Bush is or Clinton. This is so much bigger than all the petty arguments about all that shit. So, in a world like what we have today, how can you create the best solution? What do I mean by that in such vague terms? Solution means something different for everyone. You know, you have to put in what you want to get out of it. So you're trying to guide things to create itself the way you would prefer. This is not something that you go, okay, 1 + 1 = 2. This is more of a 1 + X = C. I have no idea what that is. That's just whatever. It's simplistically complex. And I just lost every bit of thinking. I do hope somebody actually is able to put in the what I know would be very grueling time into looking into everything that I have tried to say. Now, you're not going to need to actually look at every little thing, but if you attempt to go and look at everything I have ever tried to say, you're going to start to catch a series of threads that all somehow interweave and interconnect and all that. It's all part of the same thing. Everybody thinks I'm talking about something different. It's not something different. It's all part of the same thing. It all comes together. I just have no way of being able to take the vastness of this and organize it into a cohesive sentence so that people can understand it, especially since people need input instead of people just looking at what the input is that's there. When somebody says something crazy, somebody was describing how, all the lights are out between such and such street and such street. And since they'd called a police dispatch, well, police are kind of programmed to respond to specific communications. So once the communication went beyond, we're at the intersection of, the police officer just, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm sorry, did you say? No, I'm saying between here and here and here and here. I'm sorry, those are parallel. Okay, come on. People really aren't that stupid, and yet that's how we respond to each other every day. And it's not just this one instance. If you really think about how you communicate with people, you're going to recognize that you do the same thing. So do I. I'm not trying to say I'm smarter. I'm just trying to say I can observe more. It's a curse and a blessing. Does that make me highly intelligent? Yeah, in some ways. But as people around me and who've lived with me can attest to, it also makes me incredibly naive and idiotic in some ways. I know that it's there. I can never recognize it, and I can never isolate it so that I can work on it. But I know people see that. That's how they see things through and in me. I have a lot more depth than people give me credit for. I put a lot more thought into things than most people give me credit for. Most of the time, if I say something, people take the very surface of what I'm saying, make a determination about it, and then throw out or spit out a response that really they will never be able to see that it has no bearing on the subject simply because they've already made the determination. So when I come back and try to say, you're just defending yourself now. How petty. Now, wait a minute. Who's being petty first? We need to start recognizing that aspect in ourselves. I know that I wind up doing that to people when I don't think about what I'm saying. That's one of the reasons why I had to kind of get off of Facebook and away from that, because I tell you what, I'm snapping at the wrong people because I'm not able to keep the line of thought with all my different communications, especially when so many people are asking the same damn question I just got done answering. You have no idea how insanely frustrating that is. Yeah, especially for somebody who has essentially been diagnosed ADHD, I know it's something different. I myself am essentially a demon. I time travel, I dimension travel. I am Demos, dimension traveler, which includes time. Learning something, huh? Maybe. Why do I just leave it at that? Because that's the point where you're supposed to start looking. You're not going to find a lot of this stuff through the normal channels, the verified channels. You got to find the verified unverified, if you know what I mean. It is out there. You can find it. There's back doors that are in plain sight that people use every day. Every day. They're right there, right under your noses. But we're trained not to pay attention to certain things because we're expecting things to be a certain way. This is how we've all been trained to think. This is also why I don't think the same way all of society does. This is also why I will look at some of these things on the news like, oh, a school got shot up. Well, guess what? You kind of created the problem, whether you want to admit it or not. Maybe not that one exactly, but it was your kind of thinking and action that somehow made the environment for that to happen. We have been trained to ignore. No one will ever know the types of abuses I've had to deal with, including my parents, who put me through, I'm going to say, 30% of my abuse. They'll never know the full extent of the abuse I've had to deal with in my life. It sounds completely fiction, especially when I'm dealing with what amounts to a mind rend because I have jumped prematurely into a timeline that my mind wasn't quite ready to weave into. And yes, that does make sense to the ones who've actually had experience in this sort of thing. Words don't translate the experience well. You think I'm crazy when I say Doctor Strange is more real than what we think is. You have no clue. Doctor Strange, look into it a little bit closer. Yeah, they dramatize it. It's meant to be, wham, look at the lights. Okay, that's not exactly how things are, but there's something to it. And it's a lot more real than anything you can look at right in front of you. And yes, I mean right in front of you. As solid as, oh, look at this Digest Best Gold Thread, whatever that is. It's a drink concentrate of some sort, I guess. I mean, pick up an item. It doesn't matter what it is. How real is that you're looking at right there? What makes it real? That you can feel it? There's ways of making you feel things when they aren't really there. Maybe it's that you can see it. Well, that's not what I showed earlier. Of course, that's kind of like a camera trick, but not a very good one. Well, how about the simple fact that you can't really define red, the color, or blue, the color? What I see as blue may be somebody else's purple. I don't know how they see it. I can't. But likewise, nobody else can really know what it looks like to me. I can describe it. I can give you the best description possible. I'll never be able to define a single thing. That's why everything that I say, if you look at it, you will always be able to find some reason to discount it. Always. That's part of the whole thing. I don't know why it's part of it, but it's there for a reason. It's part of the message. But I'm not the one meant to explore that. Somebody else is. So when you come up with a question and you start going, you're not making sense, man. How about instead of going, you're not making sense, look into it. Question it. Am I the one that's not making sense? Or is what you've come to expect what's actually not making sense? We can get comfortable with some pretty strange things. Some really strange things. I mean, we're so comfortable keeping ourselves separated from the truth of what things are that somebody can't look at the same pig they're going to eat, or cow, or chicken. That's why they get it from the store. They don't want to carry that responsibility. They don't want to have to feel that sacrifice. What people don't recognize is this is a quantum law, which means it affects things in a quantum fashion. So when you eliminate the bad possibilities there, you create possibly in an even worse situation along the same lines over there. That's the way it works. Now, here's another interesting little tidbit, though. If you figure out how to, well, I can't figure out how to solve that problem, so how about I figure out how to solve that problem? I understand that. Let me look into that. Let me do something with that. Now we're getting somewhere. It's built into the message. Don't be stupid. You can bash me all day. Look, I ain't worth bashing. I'm a nobody. I'm just a nobody that knows my uniqueness. I'm just as special as everybody else. My whole life purpose is to get other people around me to recognize that they are just as special as what they may possibly see in me. But at this point, the only thing you're going to do is ridicule because it all sounds crazy until it doesn't. Just keep looking. It's all part of the same message. They're separate messages, but it's all part of the same message. It comes together. I have no way of being able to tell you how you'll be able to recognize where and how it comes together. You will be able to recognize how and where it comes together for you. Just don't rely on what you've expected your entire life. This world is not built on expectations. They're built on empty expectations, broken promises. This is hell, and we're transforming it. Hell and heaven are the same. Think about it. In the beginning, you can say Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve and all that, which is, if you look at it in a fractal form, because it has truth in the story itself, and it has truth in the multiple ways that you can look at that story. If you only look at one way and you never look at anything else, you are lying to yourself. There is more cosmic truth to Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden than most people recognize. There's also a lot more to the story than people have been taught to recognize. But then you start getting into pagan beliefs. Sorry, every Christian belief is built off of pagan belief structure. Every single one. You need to start questioning your roots. Instead of taking it for the face value of what you've been fed to believe, you need to start questioning it. There's a lot of truth to that Bible. At this point, because of how it's been twisted, a majority of it is allegorical. But it also has a grain of truth in every story that has been twisted enough that the story doesn't quite fit the reality. And it's been a mix of intentional and unintentional. There are people who have seen how things started. They can feel the truth of how things have progressed. They understand the truth of evolution, not the definition that it's given today. Things are about to get even stranger than they've ever been in our current recorded history. But if you look at some of the stories in the distant past, a lot of the things that are getting ready to happen have happened before. There's not a single bit of technology we have today that has not already been in place at some point in the past as a basic starting point for something a hell of a lot better. So start questioning everything, because the most advanced tech that you can think of right now may not be. In fact, scientists will start to recognize that some of the most advanced physics you can get to is from learning how to utilize the most basic. That's where you need to start, the most basic. Think of how fractals work. The most basic can create the most elaborate of designs and patterns. So, focus on one line. You want to create, not annihilate. When you deny, you're just kind of throwing it away. People have absolutely no clue how many times God has given them a gift and they've been the ones to just throw it in the trash thinking that it was evil. But people don't recognize all of God's creation. Okay, another one for the day. That's 2 for today, I think. Rising Angel signing off at 30 plus minutes.